Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to episode 8 of The Diligent Wholesaler. Today we have a very special and arguably our most important episode that we've ever filmed. If you're a real estate investor, you know how difficult it is to find a good quality general contractor. They can literally make or break the investment. You can do all of your research. You can go out and be the best marketer to find the best off-deal properties. You can analyze them to find that they do work, and we've taught you how to do that in the past. Even negotiate with the seller to get the pricing. But unless you have a good general contractor, that investment could go south and be a dead deal and potentially lose you money. So in today's episode, we're going to teach you how we find good general contractors in our business, what to look for, and we're going to sit down right now and show you with a real GC exactly what they're looking for in today's market for investors. What do they look for from investors? What do you need to say to them to build a good relationship? We're going to discuss some very difficult questions, and we're going to just put them right out there for our general contractor. This is definitely an episode you're going to want to stick around for as we further dive into finding this GC. Second thing I'd like to bring up is for the Diligent Elite memberships. If this is your first time watching one of our videos, or if you've seen the past 7, you know that we recently launched what we call the Diligent Elite. Sign up on the Facebook page here at the sign up button. If you're interested in joining, we give you all of our tools, all of our info, analyzers. We can provide you with funding. Anything that you need to become a wealthy real estate investor, we provide, all for a very low price of $19 a month. And we're actually closing it off this Friday. So we open it up for 1 week's time. It'll be closed Friday at noon, so don't delay on that. Including in that membership, we're going to give you the exact general contractor questionnaire that we use to interview GCs. So if you've never spoken with one before, or you've had bad luck with 20 of them, we're going to teach you exactly what to say that they will take you, as a serious investor, to avoid being scammed and upsold on things that you don't need, how to know if they're, what to look for on good quality work, and how to relate to them, which is the most important thing. So this is, again, we're very excited about this. We have a special guest I'll turn over in just a second. If this is your very first time with joining the Diligent Wholesaler for one of our episodes, thank you so much. What we are doing, our mission is to bring transparency and honesty back into wholesaling. If you notice on any of our deals on the website, you'll see that we perform and provide all of our analysis. If it's a turnkey, we show you our cash flow analyzer, exactly how much you should make. If it's a rehab project, we show you all of the numbers. We go through every single property and we vet them in to make sure that you are receiving all the information. So we believe in transparency, honesty, and we want to provide you with good deals. So without further delay, I will turn it over to Wendell, who has a special guest. I'll let him introduce, and again, take some notes on this one, write down everything you hear, because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to speak with a GC and get real honest opinions and feedback. So with that, I'll kick it on over here.
Alright guys, welcome to this episode, and today I'm going to grill our GC. So she better be prepared, okay? Because I'm going to ask her some very tough questions. And actually, this house that we are in right now is one of our projects that she did, right, for a client, several years ago. And one of the things that we always do when we talk to a GC, after we vet them out on the phone, is we go to the project site and check out their work. If the quality is great, that's good. And then you ask them about how much does this cost, how much does painting cost, how much does hardwood flooring cost, how much is their labor cost and material cost for a lot of these things, right? So that's one way for you to vet whether a GC is good enough or not. And then today, as I said, as John mentioned, we will ask our GC some very tough questions. I mean, we like to work with Roxana, because her costing are very reasonable, after talking with her. So that's one of the things one of the most important things that you need to ask. Don't be afraid to ask that question, right? because I mean, if your GC kind of tries to hide what the cost is, I mean that's not a good sign, right? So anyway, so without further ado, I have three questions that I want to ask Roxana. The first question is, what advice will you give to real estate investors on how they can find good GCs? That's always seemed to be like the number one problem, of real estate investors is they cannot find a good GC. It's like a good GC is as rare as a unicorn, right? They don't exist. It seems that way, or and I know for those of you who are Cubs fans, I hate to say this, but finding a good GC, it's like the Cubs winning the World Series, right? It happens only every 100 years, right? So it's kind of tough, right? But what do you do? It's possible to find a good GC, and we have a good GC here. And for those of you who are diligent elite members, you will get Roxana's contact info, and you can do business with her. So without further ado, again, that question: how do you find? I mean, what advice will you give to real estate investors on how they can find a good GC?
Thanks, Wendell, for having me here. Hi, everyone. First off, the biggest thing I'm going to say is, and this is going to take a lot by surprise, is finding a good GC is not on Yelp.
That's right.
That's not it. Finding a good GC involves getting in contact with and knowing people who've worked with other people that have a good GC.
That's right. So in fact, we found Roxana through a referral.
Right.
So.
Word of mouth for investors. Don't get me wrong. Let's be very clear. We're not talking about the kitchen remodeler. We're not talking about the basement installer and things like that. We're talking about GCs that work with investors, because investors are tricky. And they're not like a homeowner.
GCs look at GCs and investors look at GC and we would say GCs are tricky.
Yeah, GCs are right. Investors are tricky, and that's why GCs are tricky.
Right.
And here's why. Because a GC immediately, when they know that you are an investor, they immediately start counting your money.
That's right.
I do it. I did it. I don't do it today. but I don't do it today simply because I too am an investor at some level. Not at your level, but I'm at some level. I've done investment work. So I understand the process a bit better now.
Okay.
So in finding a GC, the best method is word of mouth. Using a GC that's worked with an investor, especially a GC that understands and works with an investor. That's very, very important.
Right.
That being the case, because a calculation of your profit margin as a GC is based upon the work that the GC gets. So, and a calculation of an investor's profit margin is based upon how swiftly you can get the project completed and at under or below or at budget.
Right.
If you have to go over budget, then you lose money. The deal is a bust. So you want to be careful of that. So finding a GC, that's very, very important.
Right.
I would say work with other investors, GCs. I'd say hire yourself a project manager. Even if and I'm not talking about it. We tend to, a lot of investors, what I've found, tend to hire their cousins and brothers. Oh, my brother, my father does this. And,
Right.
this is a whole, real estate investing is different. So finding a GC based upon that is getting out, networking, finding and going into these events and dealing with people like your elite program and getting to know the people, not just because references are great,
Right.
but unless you can see some physical evidence, and pictures are wonderful,
Right.
but unless you can see physical evidence, you need to be able to do that.
That's right.
Develop.
So to summarize so far what you've said, the first thing is get referrals from other investors, right?
Yes,
Um,
most important.
right. So that's how you find a good GC. Don't look for them online through Yelp or whatever, right? Don't Google them, right? Because the good GCs, yeah, I mean they're a rare commodity, and so word of mouth, someone who has direct experience with them is very, very important, right? And then once you get referred to a good GC, as Roxana said, don't just rely on pictures. Hey, the pictures look great, but what if they photoshopped it, right? So you actually have to go to their job site and see, how's the painting, right? I mean, painting is so simple, and yet I'm surprised some GCs,
It's
don't
a
have
pain
good painters.
everywhere.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
it paint everywhere?
Exactly, exactly. I mean, if it is, it's a bad sign, you know. Then that GC is probably not a good GC. And then second question here is, what's the typical cost or what's the typical profit margin that a GC would have on a project so that our viewers, real estate investors, would know?
Okay, so that's a tricky question, Wendell. And the reason that's a tricky question is because each individual business, profit margin is based upon their own desires.
Right. But what's like the typical?
But
or typical
if you're
GC?
dealing with a GC that is profit driven, typically it's about 15 to 20%. If they're profit driven. If you're dealing with a GC that's more of a conscious capitalist like we are, and we believe in volume, then you're dealing with a profit margin anywhere from 5 to 10%, which is really based upon the government what they feel. If we do a federal job, then there's a profit margin from 5% to 10%, which is reasonable.
Yeah,
It's a reasonable margin.
Yep, that's very reasonable, and that's good to know. I know some GCs that we work with have profit margins of like 20, sometimes even 30%, and that's
called greed.
Exactly, that's ridiculous. Like you work with the GC once, and then you don't want to work with the GC again, right?
Here's our motto, real quick, for investors. We understand the major principle of investing in real estate, and that is you don't get rich off of one job.
Exactly, you don't get rich
You
off
just
of
don't.
one deal.
Yeah,
You know.
right.
Yep, exactly. So the last question here is that, just to warn our viewers, other real estate investors, and a lot of them are newbie investors, so they haven't done a single deal or they're on to their first deal. What are the tricks that unscrupulous GCs do so they take advantage of their clients, i.e. the real estate investor, something that our viewers would want to watch out for?
The biggest thing is that if you're doing something that requires plumbing or electrical, that's where your biggest unscrupulous behavior comes. With plumbing and electrical, if they have to change something or open something, the biggest thing is that they open it and close it before you get to view it. That's consistently across the board. So if you can't see it, you can't pay for it.
Or you don't know what to pay for it, right?
Well,
Or you have to pay for it. Whatever they
did,
want.
because of what the way it's set up is, and these type of contractors make it bad for our business, is that they can become, especially for a newbie and women especially, become bullies.
Right.
And very aggressive in their demeanor and how they do it. And I see a lot of new women investors, right? So what happens is they feel like they withdraw, and then if a woman gets aggressive, then she becomes a big. If a man is aggressive, then he's a good business person.
Right.
So that's one of the things. Make sure that whatever they do, you have someone who knows on your team. Even if you don't have a contractor, a project manager, or somebody who knows the business that they can inspect the work.
Right.
Stay diligent in. I don't like micromanagers, but micromanage. Know everything. Have a sheet that outlines exactly what you want, but you got to know what you want.
Right.
Don't allow them to oversell you.
Right.
Have a conversation. They'll come in and they'll tell you things because they see a hairline crack in the foundation wall. They say you have structural damage.
Right.
Not understanding that we live on an island and the world moves. So you're going to always have some kind of movement or a crack, but it doesn't have to be a structural crack.
Yep.
That's one thing. The other thing is you go in and they want to overcharge you for hanging a pre-hung door. We had that conversation. A pre-hung door costs you $100. They want to charge you $275 to install. Right?
Right.
Rule of thumb: cost. Material. If material is $100, labor and material shouldn't be more than $3. That's the rule of thumb. The labor cost is never 3 times more than the material cost. If the labor cost is more than 3 times the amount of the material cost, you're being screwed. Another good habit is receipts. Contractors do. They have a tendency to come in and tell you they're working. You're making deals. If you have to babysit me, right, you're not making money, right? So what they do is they bank on you not being around, and they tell you that they picked up this material and that material, and they're doing another job over here, and they're utilizing those materials receipts to get you to reimburse them for those dollars. They do that. So my suggestion to any investor is set up an account.
Right.
You understand? Where they can go in and buy and share with you their list of supplies and materials. We are very diligent. We don't let any of our subcontractors buy the material. We purchase it. Because I don't want you to, if you come with something happens and you got a ACE receipt or something like that within the same day, then we give you that. But you can't buy your material for us. You can pick it up, but you can't buy it. That's another thing. Right. And then the third most important thing when dealing with a contractor is never ever tell a contractor, and this is a favorite, if you give me a good price on this project, we have so many more we can do together.
Oh,
don't do that.
I made that
That's
mistake
that's the worst.
Why is that?
That's because we hear that all the time. So we'll say, oh, okay, now we're going to give you a good price. So we know that you've went around and looked at all of these contractors, and they have pretty high prices, So we know you're going to get it, and we know we're already going to be under. So we go up to their price, and we say, well, this is what it costs. It's $500. I'm going to give you a deal at $400 because we're going to do work together. We don't care if we're going to do work with you most of the time at the end, because every job is, an average contractor thinks of a job as this is the job right now, especially when you're dealing with investments and when you're dealing with residential rehab and renovation, because the average job is anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, right? So we're already looking ahead, and we got work ahead of that. So even if you had something, unless you have it in the contract saying, it doesn't matter, right? So that just sets you up to be taken in terms of, okay, they don't care. If they're going to do a bad job, they're going to do a bad job. If they're going to overcharge you, they're going to overcharge you. The best way to deal with a contractor in terms of that is, let's see. Let's do this project. And let's see what happens here. I get a lot of calls from new investors. Just had one from a woman who lives in Texas. Purchased a property here, went through her broker, and hired a gentleman who was her broker's brother-in-law.
Okay.
Who now she's the broker project managing this project.
And it's her brother-in-law.
It's her brother-in-law.
Okay.
The woman came in, and be realistic in your costs. The woman came in, it should have, for the amount that she spent, should have been a gut rehab. However, it really wasn't. It was some work. The basement was redone. However, the work was really, really bad. I've had it happen with me with subcontractors. That's why we've come up with a different vetting system and how we deal with them. We try them out on small projects. Everybody is tried out on a small project first. Right. Let's see how that works. Let's see how the billing goes. Let's see how you invoice it. Biggest thing is, can you follow directions?
Right.
If I tell you to email me your invoice on Wednesday to get paid next Friday, and you email me the first job on a Thursday and tell me you need your money on Friday, then I know we can't do business together.
Right.
Because you can't follow directions. If I say, send me a text or an email of your supplies, and you call me, then you can't follow simple things.
Yeah.
So it's all the simple
we
things.
We have believe me, I made the mistakes. That she was saying. I have a whole slew of contractors who don't seem to be able to follow directions. Yeah. Just amazing. Very simple. Just showing up on the job on time. If a GC shop... Another
sign.
Right? at a job on time is like a big thing, right? It's like, I don't understand it. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So the biggest thing, and that's it, now that you bring it up, that's a great one. Because if they show up late at the job, then the quality of work is not going to be done because they want to be paid.
Right.
So they're going to skimp and do things. Anything that triggers something inside of you. If you get an uneasy feeling, then the biggest advice for that, because contractors they'll take your money and run. Right?
Right.
So you give enough for your supplies and you give enough to get the job running at first, right? And then it's progress payments after that. But the most important thing is, one, never ever let them close anything up. Never let them close anything up before you get to see what it is.
So like the plumbing, when they open up the wall, fix the plumbing, hold on, let me see if you really fixed it.
Exactly.
You change it with the right piping versus you got another pipe from an old house and put it there,
Right, exactly, because
Right.
it can be done.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Never close anything up. The second thing is never have a reimbursement policy in place. Always have a reimbursement policy. I mean, if you can't set up an account where they can purchase and you can monitor it, then that's fine. But at least set it up where they can order it. Home Depot will do it. Lowe's will do it. We have very good relationships with them. And what we're able to do is we're able to go online, create a supply and material list, share it with our client, email it over to the supplier, whichever one we use, because we don't just use a big box store. We use some smaller stores also. But we're able to email that over, and our relationship is strong enough where our client doesn't have to interrupt their day. They can call the payment in. They have a list of the supplies. They have a copy of the receipt, and they know
exactly
what they're paying for. Those two ways right there are ways that you get taken quite frequently. If you do it that way, you can do a progress payment without handing over your money at the beginning, right?
Yep.
You can then say, okay, you have money to start, give me a week's worth of work, and then I'll make a payment.
Exactly.
Right, that's a different. You don't lose that way. And then after you get to know your contractor, then you guys can work some other arrangements out. But until you get your foot in and you get wet, you need to do that. So that's the important one. And then the final one is never promise extra work based upon this job. Each job is separate.
Right.
Okay? Each job is what it is, when it is, and that goes for me.
Yeah.
I'd love to, as a contractor, I want your business.
Right.
I need your business. We need a partnership.
Right.
And the thing is that we're a partner in this process. Because when you make money, if I give you a good deal and you make money, then you're going to use me all the time.
Exactly.
And you're going to refer me.
Yep.
And that's the biggest thing.
Yep, exactly. So always think long term. Are there any questions from our viewers right now? No? Okay, great. So thanks for Roxana.
Thanks for having me.
This is really valuable. I mean, I've learned some new things in here.
Listen, these guys are great. You guys need to sign up for the membership. It's very, very important. This man's brain is awesome. He sent me over a sheet for investment that I'm still trying to figure out the micro-enabled codes.
So anyway, yeah. So sign up for the Diligent Elite if you want to work with Roxana. So that you have a good GC as part of your team, because as John said, it's very, very crucial to have a good GC, because a good GC, I mean, your GC could make or break your project, right? It could make a project that you thought would make $50,000. If you get a bad GC, you can lose $50,000 instead. So be very careful in choosing a good GC, and again, the Diligent Elite members, you'll have access to a good one. So, anything else, Evan? Okay.
Yeah. Guys, thanks again for tuning in this week for episode 8, where we covered exactly what questions to ask a GC. Next week, we won't be having an episode. Next week is Thanksgiving. So join us the following week to learn exactly how to build passive income, as Wendell would call it, massive passive income. And thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget to sign up for the Diligent Elite. This Friday is the last chance you'll have up until this Friday. After that, we're closing off the registration, and I know a lot of websites will say, oh, we're closing off registration, but you can still sign up. No, we're actually closing it off. We've had a lot of people sign up, and we can only manage so many. So this Friday is the last chance that you'll get to sign up for the Diligent Elite, and once you sign up, you'll have access to everything we've already sent out, as well as access to Roxana's contact info here, so that you have a referral of a great GC. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll keep you updated.